again, welcome to our event. Meaning, if it's about the pledge giving analysis report, great. I'm not prepared to answer questions about other portions of the software, whether that's donations or accounting or membership. Frequently, when those questions come in, I ask folks to call support about that or look for a webinar event that is on that specific topic. When you've seen what you came to see, by all means, please, you're welcome to leave the webinar event at any time. I will be wrapping things up no later than 12:20, but I will be happy to stick around and see what I can't do to answer questions you may have about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you in advance so much for attending. We hope these webinars are proving helpful for you. So our pledge giving analysis report is found here in donations. We are going to be working on exclusively, I'm showing this to you specifically in our latest and current version of Church Windows 18.15.3 up here in the upper right. Again, some of the features I'm going to show you today, if you're not on the latest version or current version, may be a motivation to get you up to that latest version. There are some nice new features added in the pledge giving analysis report in version 18. So again, if you're not on that version, maybe this will help kind of push you to getting up to that latest version. So we go into donations, we go up to reports and export. Where do we find it? Reports and export, we go to compare and analyze, and right here, a very first option in our compare and analyze list is our pledge giving analysis report. Okay, so we're going to click on that, and there's a lot of misconception or confusion about this report, primarily because it has the word pledge in the name of the report. Well, a lot of folks go, well, we're not a pledging church, so it really can't be of any use for us. Not true. This is a report that allows us to compare pledging to giving. However, if you're not a pledging church, you can use it to run reports on just your giving and giving trends. Okay, so it's not just about pledge giving. Yes, it does allow us to compare giving to pledging or vice versa, but it is not necessary in order to be able to use the report or to make this a useful and helpful report. It is still a powerful report nonetheless. So one of the first things that I point out here about the report itself is, notice here, there are several tabs across the top, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on each one of those. Pledge Giving tab, Givers, Accounts. Let me click on each one of those. So Giving/pledging, Givers, Accounts, Columns, Sort, Fonts, and Report Options tab, which was actually added in the version 18. I think it was actually 18.15.2 or 3, I think. But definitely in 18. So you can use a combination of criteria on this report. So if we go to our Giving and Pledging tab here, notice it says Giving includes. So how does giving impact our report? Then further below that, we have pledging include. So how does pledging impact our report or what we're wanting to see on the report? And just by way of an example, which says all. So basically, do we want to see all giving regardless of whether they've given or not? Do we want to see only those who've given? Or maybe only those who gave with a certain date or a certain amount range from a starting giving point, either no upper limit or to an ending point? Or do we only want to see those who did not, or include those who did not give? Similar type controls when we go down to our pledging include. Let me get rid of the drawings there. So here we want to see everybody, on the system, again, regardless of pledging. Only those who pledged from, within a certain range, or maybe only those who did not pledge. And again, we can combine these with giving and pledging. So an example of this is a couple common ways that these kinds of are used is, okay, here it is. We're after the end of the first quarter. We're at the end of the first month of the second quarter. I want to see all of my pledgers, a list of all of my pledgers who have not given as of at the end of the first quarter. So we would do only those who did not give and only those who pledged. Here, I would probably just edit my date range over to from January 1, 16 to March 31st. Again, there's just my first quarter. And then when I click print, that's going to reveal a list of only those folks who, of those pledgers who have pledged to any one of my pledge accounts who have not given, meaning they haven't given us anything towards their pledge. Another common example of that is I want a list of those who did not pledge, only those who did not pledge, but who have given. So again, we're using the giving and pledging. If you're, again, not a pledging church, you'll just have to bear with us while we go through this. To see a list of all of my non-pledgers who have given to the church. Maybe we want to try to maybe see if we can get them to pledge to the church. Okay? If you're not a pledging church at all, then most likely your pledging include is going to just simply be checked all. Then it doesn't matter whether there's a pledge entered or not. You're just basically saying pledges of no consequence or is irrelevant to my query, okay, to my report. Notice here it says only those who did not, or only so those who pledged from. We do have a series of check boxes down here at the bottom, meaning those with a specific pledge type, flat, annual, semi-annual, quarterly, monthly, semi-annual, monthly, biweekly, or weekly. So again, you can choose to see those with a certain pledge type. Maybe we want to see a reporter on our report all those who have met their pledge, or maybe we want to see who's those who have not met all their pledges. Okay? Most of the time, those are run commonly at the end of the year, not in the middle of the year. Because many times we have folks that are entered with, say, an annual pledge, and so they're not going to be seen as behind in their pledge until they get to the final day of the year and they haven't met their pledge. So really that depends on the type of pledge that you've entered for somebody. Okay? But still very powerful. I want to see a list of those who have met their pledge or those who have not. Again, as we've clearly seen here, we can use the date range to edit the date range. A couple new features in version 18 that were not here in previous versions are this receive statement include or gives with family include. We had lots of users who were calling us saying, hey, I want to see who is checked or not checked to receive statement, or those that are checked as gives with family or not checked as gives with family. And this option here, these options in the upper right, receive statement include or gives with family include, allow us that capability to do that. Also, over here on the right side, notice we've got the plus year, minus year. This allows us to be able to change the year for our report without actually having to click in the date range to actually edit that. Okay? So if I go, okay, I want to look at my pledging for 15 or my date range for 2015, I just click the minus year, and notice it just changes my date range automatically to January 2015 to March 31st, or whatever I've entered my date as. Okay? So same thing. If I just leave it as January 1 through December 31st, it just click the minus and it'll just take off the year. Big time saver. So again, to sort of further complicate it, again, I'm just sharing or passing on what I'll commonly hear through support calls is, again, if we go back to our only those who did not give but have pledged, a common request if we jump over to our Givers tab would be, okay, I want to see my list of active members who have pledged but haven't given. So here I can combine my information on my Giving and Pledging tab with my information on my Givers tab. So here I've chosen status. I can choose active member, click Add Selection. I can continue to add more criteria to this field if I wish. Again, you can combine criteria, but you have to be very specific in terms of what it is you're asking for. Okay? You have to know what you want. And then, even then, the data has to support the output. This is true about any database, not just Church Windows, but any program. So here again, only those who did not give and only those who pledged. So basically a list of all of my active members under status, active members who have pledged but have not given through March 31st. We're wanting to see, if there's some reason why those folks haven't given to, towards their pledge for the first quarter or something, I don't know what the reasoning would be behind it, but this is the type of output users ask for. Okay. We can even go so far if we click on our accounts tab to ask for just a certain account, or in this case under campaign, a certain pledge. So in this case, I'm not going to do that. If we've got 2 or more pledge accounts, I want to see any pledge, so we're not going to limit it to just one campaign. However, if you do have multiple pledges, you can. If we are not, I'm just looking at questions here, folks, bear with me. If we were a non-pledging church, would we select only those who did not pledge? No. That's a great question, Barbara. I think, again, what you would do is you would just change your pledging include to all. Then pledging, again, is irrelevant. Perhaps you got that from a couple minutes ago when I explained that. I am new to Church Windows. Does the Gives with Family mean multiple people who have the same envelope number? That's a great question, Christina. That could be the case, but basically I think would think of it, yes, it could mean if there's numbers or envelope numbers in play, that's what that could mean, but it also could mean if you don't use numbers that the system is being instructed to basically put all of the giving onto one statement at year's end if we've got 2 or more people in the family who are giving, basically. There's actually a very detailed previous recording of another webinar presentation on our website here on the Gives with Family function. I'd recommend you take a look at that. So, again, only those who did not give, only those who pledged, and active members only. Okay? Again, we're not going to limit it to accounts, but we are going to click on our columns tab here because this is one of the reports that offers a whole slew of information columns that it's possible to include on your report. Okay? We've got, visible columns. This is kind of a reporting convention we're beginning to discuss here. We have visible columns, which are the ones that will appear on our report. Available columns on the left are the columns that are available to add to the report that are not currently displayed. So in order to toggle the fields back and forth, you simply use these left and right arrows in the center here. Let me steer some focus here with a poorly drawn arrow. So right there, everybody should see my arrow pointing to my left and right arrows. We can even go so far as to reorder them using the up and down arrows here on the right hand side. So again, just keep an eye out for these particular controls. These are true on virtually all of the reports, whether you're in accounting or donations or membership, to move the columns back and forth to and from visible columns from available columns, and the up and down arrows on the right to reorder them. So in this case, you just have to decide what it is you want to see here. Okay? So notice here, one of the things that we get this is a common support call, is, why are some of these bold over here versus, not bold? Well, look, we look down here at the bottom left, it says detailed line items are listed in bold. So basically, if you want to add more detail to the report, you'll want to look at each one of those bold field names or column names. Okay? If we don't want to see the detail, like each one of the transactions or the totals, well, the totals really, then we would want to not include our bold columns or fields. So right now we're going to look at account, we're going to look at just account, giver name, total pledged, and total given. Very simple report. I just want a list of those who've pledged but have not given. Our sort tab is automatically sorting by giver, but you can choose, sort field 1, 2, and 3 based on any one of these columns here. By default, it's giver. You can choose to sort by giver number or giver name. Are they over under on their pledge, a percent of their pledge, total given, total pledged? We're going to leave it as giver for the time being. And we're going to leave it as sort ascending. And we're going to simply click print. So here we see for our organ rebuilding campaign, we have one person, Hamer Agler, who has pledged, but for the first quarter has not given us anything. A lot easier for me to generate the report using it this way, letting the system software do the work for me rather than me having to go through and look through all of those gifts. It's what we build the software for. Okay? So, again, this is just a small example of how the system can do some work for us. Okay? Maybe I want to see a listing of all of my pledgers regardless of giving. So I would go back to my Giving and Pledging tab. I would change it from only those who did not give up to all and only those who pledged. And then when we click Print, it reveals our list of all of our pledgers. Sorry. Now we are going to go to Accounts and we are going to choose a specific campaign. So let's go down and choose my Save the Dogs. Now click Print. So here's my 3-page report with my count of my 22 people who have pledged to save the animals. Okay, so we notice here all of my names. Everyone has a Save the Animals drive with the January through December 2016 date range with the total pledged. I can go, well, I don't know what kind of pledge is that. So I can go back to my Columns tab, and we're going to choose here amount frequency. So if I add frequency to the report and click Print again, these kind of columns overlap sometimes and it's difficult to tell, but right here is my frequency column. Right here, frequency, and we notice that on line 2 next to the account name that we're showing all of these are set up as flat pledges. Another question, is there a way to get addresses to show on this report? That's a really good question. Let's take a look. So we close out, we go to our Columns tab, and what do you know, over here on the right or on the left under our available columns, we do see address and phone number. So if we add those over to our visible columns on the right-hand side and click Print, it will include the name and address for each one of our givers. Lots and lots of flexibility here, folks. Okay? You got to dive in and play with this stuff. Again, I'd mentioned earlier about how maybe we want to use receive statement or gives with family. So maybe we want to check that. So we'll leave it as, let's kind of close out of here and reset this again. So we're just going to kind of reset the defaults. So here under Giving Include, we're going to choose all. Pledging Include all. We're going to leave it as 2016. We want to see who does not have Gives with Family checked. And then we're going to click on our Columns tab, and we're going to kind of remove all of this other extraneous information that we don't want to see. And we'll just choose Giver Name, and then we'll come down here with Gives with Family. Let me make double check here. Does not give with family. And we're going to click Print. So here we see a very simple report that shows just a name of every individual in our database, 5-page report that has Gives with Family set to no or is not checked. Okay, so I'm being asked, how did you add the address to visible columns? Yeah, again, it's all about, Gloria, it's about what's on your available columns and visible columns, which we're asking to display. So we found address under available columns on the left. We used the right-facing arrow in the middle to add it over to our visible columns on the right. That's true about any of the columns. Okay, so Gives with Family. That's been a really common support call for us. Hey, I want to, who do I have to go through every record under Manage Givers to check and see who is not checked as Gives with Family? Well, prior to this version, yes. Now that we have this report option on our pledge giving analysis, you can print a quick and simple report controlling your columns to see who has Gives with Family checked. Now I can go in and look at each one of those individual records and either check them as Giving with Family. It might be that I have no one in a family checked for that. The other option, a common support question is, what about receive statement? because again, a common support call is, hey, I've got, a handful of, families or people that are not receiving their statements. Well, we can do does not receive statement. Again, clicking my columns tab, removing gives with family, checking receive statement. Click print, and there's my list of 14 people that do not have received statement checked. Okay, so this report is very powerful, folks. We are at 20 minutes after the hour now. I could have probably spent another 5 or 10 or 15 minutes on this report, but I'm done with what I'm talking about. I've tried to answer questions as best I can here. If there are other questions, please go ahead and enter those. I'll see what I can't do to answer those. We are trying to do better about making recordings of these webinar events available on our website or on our YouTube page sooner, folks. So look for this particular event to be on our website by next Monday. And we're going to be doing that, trying to keep with that protocol every week now. So every week's events should be available, if they are new content, on the website by the beginning of the following week. Okay? So again, play with this report, folks. There's no way you can break it, and if you can, we need to know how you did it. So you really can't do any harm to these reports. Okay, so please dive in and play with them and see if you can't get some really useful and helpful information out of them. Okay, all right. I'm going to kind of stop talking here and see if I have any other questions coming in. Perhaps folks are just typing in some really lengthy questions there. I'm not sure. But I don't see anything coming in right now. I do see folks kind of darting out pretty quickly. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. So yes, Marilyn, that's a good question. You can adjust column width on these reports to change how the columns are displayed. Certainly if you're, what we get this question a lot is, I want to, let's kind of add some more columns over here. Can we not have these print in, like, say, 2 rows like this? I want to see name and total given and total pledged and then the accounts and things like that. In this case, the report is hard-coded from this format, so changing something like our column width might help with, regards to columns kind of staying, sticking out over the top of one another. But you'll have to come in and, highlight a particular account or column, click on the adjust column width, and play with adjusting those. They can always be changed back. Pat's asking, if you need to change gives with family for a number of people, is there a way to do a mass edit? Pat, I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry. Again, that's a question I was unprepared for today. I don't have an answer for it. Please call us on support. We'll be happy to look at it with you. There may be a way to mass edit that in membership, but I just don't know. You're welcome, Gloria. Pat, my knee-jerk response is I don't think there is a way to mass edit that in membership. I could be wrong, but I just don't know. Yeah, right here we've got giver number, and the gives with family is not a checkbox here. Yeah, so I'm 99% sure gives with family cannot be mass edited. Yeah, that would have to all be done in donations. You're welcome. Okay, folks, I don't see any other questions coming in. I'm going to go ahead and end the event for everyone. We hope it's been helpful. And again, look for the recording to be available after next Monday. And we hope to see you at another future Church Windows User Group webinar event. Thank you all so much. Take care. Bye-bye.